Hydrogen is the key to achieving the goal of energy independence. President John Fitzgerald Kennedy set a goal for our country to go to the moon and return safely before the decade was out. Just 8 years later, Neil Armstrong landed on the moon. Clear and unambiguous goals always work. Today, we need a new national goal, and that should be to become completely energy self-sufficient. We cannot depend on anybody else for our energy today. The way to achieve that goal is with hydrogen. We need an entirely new way to think about energy. For over the past 100 years, we have been dependent on oil for our energy. But today, that no longer makes any sense. So, let's take oil off of the table. As they say, oil and water don't mix. So many times we hear the phrase, follow the science, and that is good advice. If you ask a good question, it will lead you to a good answer. So, here is a good question. Is it possible to harvest energy from the world's oceans? And that answer is a resounding yes. And to prove that outrageous statement, we are going to use some simple science to do a simple experiment that anybody can do. If you look at a photograph of the Earth taken from space, it looks blue. That is because most of the surface of our Earth is covered with water. So, let's experiment with some water. Hang on, this is going to be fun. Here is a standard water glass. Just took it out of the kitchen. And here is some drinking water. Comes in a bottle. This one comes from a spring in Maine. And I'm going to simply pour this drinking water into our glass. Now we have a glass of fresh water. 71% of the surface of the Earth is covered with water, and most of that water is salt water. Here is a shaker of salt. I'm going to pour some salt into our fresh water. Okay, what did I just do? Well, I created salt water. I took something that was drinkable and turned it into something that is not drinkable. You saw how easy it was to put that salt into the water? So, here's a challenge for you. Now, take that salt back out of the water. Good luck with that one. The sodium molecule and the water molecule have now bonded together. Easy to do it one way, but the other way, not so much. Let's take another look at our picture of the Earth. What do you see? 2/3 of all of that water is hydrogen. You know, H2 plus O. 2 molecules of hydrogen and 1 molecule of oxygen. Simple stuff, really. But those 2 molecules are stuck together. So we are talking about molecules and electrons here. There is something called a covalent bond. That is the bond between atoms that share electrons. Here is a simple graphic. There is also one more process that we need to know about here, and it is called electrolysis. That term means electricity used to drive a chemical reaction. So, we are going to do an experiment today, and for this simple science experiment, we need a power supply. Here's a little transformer that was left over from some electrical appliance that I had a long time ago. It provides 12 volts DC output, and it plugs into a standard wall outlet. We are also going to need some nails for this experiment. Simple, standard 3-inch construction nails. They are available at any hardware store. We need these nails to act as an electrical conductor. What I've done here is I've soldered that wire to those 2 nails. Here are those 2 wires connected to those 2 nails and inserted into our glass of salt water. I have also attached a small paper clip to each of them, so this is so that the 2 wires and those 2 nails cannot accidentally bang into each other and create a short. Now, I'm going to turn on the power. There is 12 volts negative going into one nail and 12 volts positive going into the other nail. And if I turn this glass around and you look at that nail, you will see bubbles coming off of it. Those tiny bubbles are hydrogen gas, and it is being decoupled from the oxygen molecule in real time. Yes, we are actually harvesting hydrogen right here. Okay, here's another example. I connected some wires to the 12-volt battery from my lawn tractor, and this provides a more powerful source of electricity, and now it gives us more bubbles. It works. It always works. Okay, so what can we actually do with hydrogen? Well, have you ever seen those massive flames pouring out of the bottom of a NASA rocket as it launches towards space? NASA calls liquid hydrogen, quote, the fuel of choice for space exploration. If you want, go to Google and type in this term, NASA hydrogen fueled rockets, and you'll see. Please understand right now that hydrogen is 2.5 times more powerful than gasoline is. Jay Leno is famous for his cars. Back in 2008, and that was 14 years ago, was the last time gasoline was over $4 a gallon. BMW was experimenting with a hydrogen-powered car. And they gave one of those cars to Jay Leno for him to use for a while. Internal combustion motors, as we know so well, will run just fine if powered by hydrogen, but they do need some adjustments to work correctly. This BMW runs on both gasoline and hydrogen. Normal cars today have an exhaust pipe that emits, well, nasty stuff. A hydrogen-powered car also has an exhaust pipe, but it emits water. Here is a picture of Jay Leno drinking water that actually came out of the exhaust pipe of that very car. In an article from the London Sunday Times that he wrote, he said something interesting, and let me quote Jay Leno here. I was reading today about a guy at one of the universities who, using radio waves, was able to set fire to seawater. Unbelievable! You think, wow, there's a fuel. 3/4 of the world, free fuel. Look at that. You just don't know where it's going to come from. So there are several things that we know for certain. Water is 2/3 hydrogen, and hydrogen can be separated from the water molecule. Hydrogen is powerful, but it is not a fossil fuel, and it is clean. And importantly, it is the most abundant element on our planet, and it can be harvested relatively simply. The missing component at this time is that we need to develop a new and efficient technology that will break the bond between oxygen and hydrogen. We used 3-inch nails. Jay Leno talked about radio waves. Perhaps we can zap it with light, or perhaps X-rays, or heat, or something else not yet discovered. Some new technology will come along if we are looking for it. Somebody famous once said, "Seek and you shall find." So, moving forward, what is the best source for harvesting hydrogen? Well, remember that picture of our blue Earth? It is covered 71% by water, and 2/3 of all of that water is hydrogen. Water everywhere. It cannot be controlled by politics or politicians. It is clean and it is powerful. And best of all, it is free. Yes, free. We should give this project a new name, something that has a familiar ring to it. Let's call it the Blue New Deal. And this time, it will be better for everybody. Okay, here's the bottom line. The energy systems of our world today are broken. They are being run by tyrants. Here is an entirely new system. All we need to do is learn how to harvest the most abundant and powerful element on our planet, and that is hydrogen. Oh, yeah, and one last thought about those tyrants. How can they possibly compete with free? Thank you.